So help you God.
I do.
Could you please state your full name for the record?
Alva Jefferson Bethurum Jr.
And could you please spell your first name for the court reporter?
ALVA.
And if you could actually lean in a little bit closer to the microphone just to make sure everybody can hear you.
Is this better? A little bit better?
Maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay,
How about
that's
now?
good. Can you spell your last name for the court reporter, Mr. Bethurum?
Bethurum.
And Mr. Bethurum, do you go by AJ?
I do.
How old are you?
I'm 23 years old.
And where are you from?
Franklin, Tennessee.
Where did you go to school?
Battleground Academy.
And when did you start at BGA?
I started there in kindergarten.
Where did you go after you graduated from BGA?
I attended the University of Tennessee, Knoxville.
And did you graduate from that university?
Yes, I graduated with a degree in biochem.
When did you graduate?
May of 2020.
What are you currently doing?
I'm currently enrolled at ETSU. I'm in med school, getting an MD degree, and also getting a master's of public health.
And can you describe, how tall are you?
I'm 6'2".
How much do you currently weigh?
I'm 180 pounds.
And back in December of 2019, how much did you weigh?
Roughly 155 pounds.
So you were smaller then than you are currently here today, is that right?
Very much so.
Can you describe your high school friends and your relationship with them?
It was awesome. I mean, a lot of us had known each other since kindergarten. We had a big group that stayed at BGA all the way through. And then, everyone who was added to that class throughout our time there, I mean, we just welcomed them with open arms, and we were, super close, super tight.
Are you still close with them today?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask you about Clay Beathard. When did you meet him?
I met Clay in 8th grade.
And can you describe him?
Just a godly individual, all around just funny guy, fun to be around, a true athlete. I mean, the guy had it all. He was awesome.
And did you ever know Clay to be the type of person to pick a fight?
No.
Or kind of egg on a fight even?
No.
And what about Paul Trapini? Can you describe him?
Paul is probably the funniest person I've ever met. He had this kind of laughable, not kind of class clown aspect to him where he would just make everyone laugh, but when you needed him and you needed to talk about something, he would be the most genuine, honest, caring person he could be with you.
So he's a class clown, but he also had a kind of serious side to him as well.
Yes.
And can you describe your friendship with Sam Folks?
Me and Sam are super good friends. I met him 8th grade as well, and we stayed friends throughout high school and college. And when I was in Knoxville, he would come up and visit, hang out on the weekends sometime, and he was in Martin. I would sometimes be in Martin over winter break, waterfowl hunting, and hang out with him then. So we stayed close throughout.
And is he the type of person that would pick a fight?
No.
And can you describe your friendship with Wilson McCullough?
About the same as the last two. Wilson and I have been friends since roughly 8th grade as well. Wilson's an awesome guy. I mean, we're super close and have remained close throughout the past 9 years. We're great friends.
And is he the type of person to pick a fight?
No.
And can you describe, what did you know about his relationship with Emma Yoder?
So Emma Yoder and Wilson kind of had a friendly high school relationship, boyfriend and girlfriend, that kind of somewhat dissolved after high school. I'm not sure of all the details on it, but they were not currently dating at the time of everything that happened.
But were they still friends?
Very much so.
And kind of drawing your attention specifically to the night that all of this happened, can you describe that night? What were you doing prior to going to the McCullough's house?
I believe I'd just gotten back from West Tennessee. I'd been waterfowl hunting, came back for this specific reason because I knew all my friends were getting together, and I wanted to catch up with them. So I probably got home and took a nap and then headed over to the McCullough's house.
And can you describe what you were doing at the McCullough's house?
We were just hanging out. I mean, all 10 of us, no 2 of us went to the same university, so it had been a while since we had all seen each other. So we were just catching up, talking, took some pictures, just hanging out, really.
And do you remember that at some point you left?
Yes.
And where did you guys go?
We went to the Midtown area of Nashville.
Had you ever been there before?
No.
What was the first place that you went to?
We went to the Kung Fu bar.
And do you have any idea how long you guys stayed there?
I remember we went there and walked in and found out that the other group of friends that we were trying to meet up with were actually at Dogwood. So I bought a beer, and I was about a third of the way through it, maybe halfway through it, when we left to leave to go to the Dogwood bar. We were there maybe 15 minutes.
And after you left Kung Fu, you did go to Dogwood Bar, is that right?
Correct.
And can you describe the mood and atmosphere there?
About the same. As we caught up and were having a good time with all of the friends from our class, it was the same with the group of people we met up with, because they were actually a group of students that graduated a year prior to us. So we were talking to them about the same topics, how they were doing, where they were, things like that.
And did anything happen inside the bar that you thought was unusual or out of the ordinary, or was it just good times hanging out with friends?
Just good times hanging out with friends.
And at some point, y'all did leave the bar, is that right?
Correct.
Do you remember anything happening on the way out of the bar that concerned you?
No.
And I want to ask you specifically about what you remembered in 2019. So after this date of December 21st, 2019, when you looked back on it, what did you remember happening when you left the Dogwood Bar?
I remembered walking out, and as I got to the sidewalk, kind of going to the left, and then all of a sudden I turned around and there's this fight occurring. And that fight slowly moved across the street, and in the process it looked like it was not de-escalating, and there was a female who was forcefully put on the ground, and then I became involved in the scenario, and the events transpired. Yeah.
Did you have a perfectly clear memory of everything that happened?
Mostly. There were some very minor details that the video helped to clear up, but it was just so chaotic that initially my memory had to have some gaps filled in, because I think after an event like that you kind of try to block it out, but for the most part my memory was correct.
And can you describe what happened to you personally, when you left the Dogwood Bar that night?
So when I left the Dogwood Bar that night, this event was occurring, this fight, and I saw that it was moving across the street. It was not dispersing. It looked very aggressive, and I went to the defense, try to break it up or defend my friends. I confronted an individual, and then after confronting that individual, I was stabbed multiple times.
Where were you stabbed?
I was stabbed right under my left eye and also in my left arm.
And when you say under your left eye, was it just the skin under your eye, or where exactly were you stabbed?
No, I was stabbed. That was the entry point. The knife actually went up through the front of my eye, through the back of my eye, and actually through the posterior wall of my orbit. And I actually had an air pocket in my brain because it went through my skull. Yeah.
So the knife went into the side of your face, but into your eyeball, through the back of your eyeball, and into your skull.
Yes.
And then you said you were also stabbed in your elbow?
Yes.
And can you describe that?
I was stabbed approximately right here. The knife came in at about this angle and actually went into the joint capsule, probably about 1.5 inches or 2 inches into my arm.
And can you describe that moment of, you said that you went to kind of break up the fight, but also defend your friends.
Yes.
What was it that you saw happen that you felt like your friends needed defending?
Well, when I initially saw this fight occurring, in my mind I figured this was just, a simple disagreement, some guys pushing and shoving, and it would dissolve as it just moved away a little bit. But as it crossed the street, there were still punches being thrown. It was not de-escalating, and a female got pushed over in the process, shoved to the ground, and that's, in my mind, that is not a simple conflict anymore. That's malice, and my friends are in danger. They're getting shoved to the ground, they're getting punched, and this is obviously not just going to simply dissolve.
And so when you go over there, what did you do?
I walked up to an individual who was a little bit shorter than me, maybe by 2 inches, and I put my hands out, confronted him, and I'm not sure what was exchanged, but I ended up hitting that individual in the face, and then not that individual, someone else reached around and stabbed me. I never saw the knife, never saw anything, and I actually originally thought I'd just been punched.
What direction did that, what ultimately is a stab that you thought was a punch, what direction did that come from?
That was from my left side.
And that initial contact, is that the contact with your eye?
Yes.
And at that moment, can you describe what happens with your left eye?
So my vision immediately went out in that eye, and I knew in my head I'm incapacitated, like I can no longer participate in trying to get this fight to break up. I'm done. So I immediately started moving away. I thought that originally, I know some boxers, they get punched in the face and they have a retinal detachment. I thought that maybe would have been what happened to me. So I held my hand over my eye and just kind of moved away from the situation.
Do you remember anything happening to your left elbow?
No.
And at what point, I guess you said that you did not know that you had been stabbed. You thought you had been punched and there was something wrong with your eye.
Correct.
At what point do you realize that something more than just a punch has happened to you?
It was at least a minute and a half later. After I was stabbed, I went to the ground, and Patrick Wells came over and helped me up. And
Which, when you say you went to the ground, did you go to the ground or did you get pushed to the ground?
originally, this is one of the minor details I was talking about earlier. Originally, I thought I had gone to the ground voluntarily, but I was walking away and on the video you can see I have my hand over my eye, and this, a couple people come over and shove into me, and I went to the ground after that.
And that's something that you initially did not remember.
Correct.
And so at some point after this event, did you talk to a detective?
Yes.
And then after you talked to the detective, did the detective show you a portion of the video?
Yes.
And is that how you're able to kind of differentiate between what you initially remembered and then what you saw?
Yes.
And did you see all of the video back when the detective showed it to you?
No.
Just a small portion of it, is that right?
Correct.
So kind of going back to the actual incident, you said that you know now that you were knocked to the ground.
Yes.
And who was there with you?
When I got up, Patrick Wells was there, and we were kind of just trying to see what was going on. I was obviously dazed and maybe a little bit in shock, so we were trying to talk through that.
And when did you realize that something had happened to your friends?
In that conversation with Patrick, I'm not sure who it was, but I very clearly remember someone saying, "Clay's been stabbed."
Did you see Clay being stabbed?
I did not see Clay being stabbed.
Did you see Paul being stabbed?
I did not.
And you've already testified that you did not see yourself get stabbed.
No.
Did you ever see a weapon?
No.
And can you describe kind of your injury? You've described that the actual stabbing of your injury, but can you describe your eye injury and what you went through?
Sure. So after this event, I went to Vanderbilt University Medical Center. The next day, I underwent kind of a damage control operation, and roughly 2 weeks or a week after that, I had another operation to repair my retina. Throughout the course of the next few months, I actually was starting to gain back a small portion of vision kind of in my periphery. But at that same time, I had a cataract form due to the trauma to my eye. So in July of 2020, I underwent cataract surgery to remove the lens, and upon doing so, they were able to get another look at my retina in the back of my eye, and throughout the course of those few months, it had actually scarred down, and I don't have any vision out of it now.
And you previously testified at another hearing, is that correct?
Correct.
And at that time, did you have some vision?
At that point, that was between the second and third operation when I was starting to gain a little bit of vision back, but as the cataract grew in, they weren't able to get a clear picture of my eye, and it also took out that vision as well. And once they were able to get that out, they noticed that over those couple months, the retina had scarred down.
And so currently, can you describe what amount of vision do you have out of your left eye?
No vision.
And can you describe what, if any, pain that either of your two injuries caused you?
The elbow injury I didn't feel it at first. The injury itself, I didn't know I had until minutes after it actually happened. But the treatment for it was pretty excruciating. Once I got to the hospital, since the knife had gone into the joint capsule, they had to insert a large bore needle into the other side of the joint capsule to irrigate it and flush it out to prevent any infection. And that was extremely painful. And then with the eye stuff, 3 pretty good operations, multiple big in-clinic procedures. It's been physically and emotionally painful for sure.
Mr. Bethurum, I'm going to ask to show you some of the video evidence that's been previously introduced in exhibit number 11. And
Sure.
have you had the opportunity prior to today to view some of this evidence?
Yes.
And an opportunity that you've reviewed recently in the last week or so?
Yes.
I am going to show you what is exhibit number 11 and folder 11. Mr. Bethurum, do you see yourself in this image?
I do.
And could you touch the screen and just identify where you are at?
Did that work on y'all's end?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it not on yours?
No, it's good.
And if you can just generally describe what is going on right now.
It looks like David Bates and I are just standing next to each other, chatting about something. I'm not sure. It just looks like we're having a good time.
And I am going to skip ahead a little bit. Now it's at 2:44 and 37. Can you describe if you see yourself and what's going on now?
Yes. It seems like in that scene, it was Patrick, Paul, and I just kind of joking around, messing with each other like we always had. All friendly. I mean, you can tell that all three of us are laughing right there, just messing around.
Mr. Bethurum, you testified that you were having some alcohol that evening. Did you have too much alcohol to where that you couldn't remember anything that happened?
No,
And any of the issues with your memory, is that related to alcohol or related to something else?
it's not related to alcohol.
And Mr. Bethurum, did you know Michael Mosley on December 21st, 2019?
No.
Since then, have you learned who he is?
Yes.
Do you remember ever seeing him that night?
No, ma'am.
Do you remember any interactions that he had with any of your other friends?
No, ma'am.
And specifically, when you said that you swung at someone when you were outside, was it Michael Mosley that you swung at?
It was not.
And are you sure about that?
I'm positive.
I am going to fast forward to this point, which is 2:46:50. Mr. Bethurum, do you remember anything at all occurring between Ms. Yoder and Mr. Mosley inside the bar?
No.
Do you remember leaving the bar?
Yes.
And do you remember anything happening at the top of the stairs that concerned you?
No, it just seemed like, we were all waiting our turn to go down the stairs. There were a lot of people trying to go down the stairs at the same time. Wasn't really paying much attention to anything. I had no reason to.
And I'm going to show you exhibit 11, folder 10. I'm going to skip ahead to 2:47:20. Which again, Mr. Bethurum, do you remember leaving and going down the stairs with your friends?
Yes.
And at this point, did you hear anything that concerned you?
No.
And I'm going to show you exhibit 11, folder 7. And if you could describe kind of what you see in this video as well
Sure, that's me walking out. I'm in the circle right now. Paul slaps the sign. I didn't mean to touch it right there. And that's me kind of walking over behind him, just waiting for our Uber. And I have my back turned here. I turn around and see what's going on. You can see me watching. Punches are still being thrown. It's not breaking up. Trying to keep people out of it. And that's when there's a female shoved to the ground. The punch is still being thrown. I go to confront this individual right there. And that's when I was struck in the face. And I'm on the ground at this point.
And is that the part where you didn't remember actually getting knocked to the ground?
Correct.
Mr. Bethurum, I'm showing you Exhibit 11, Folder 7. Your Honor, I would like to pause this video during this portion of this testimony. Would it be all right if I sat to do that?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Bethurum, do you see yourself?
Yes.
Could you touch the screen to show where you are? And is this the point that you went to confront the people about your friend?
Yes.
And if you can press the clear button, it will remove that arrow. And if you could touch the screen to show where you are. And this interaction here, is this prior to you being struck?
Yes.
And can you describe what you see happening here?
I was just struck in the face.
And can you describe what just happened there?
Yes, I was walking away with my hand over my face, and one of the people in the group that just ran over shouldered me to the ground.
And that is what you described as something that you did not remember happening right after, is that right?
Correct. Patrick Wells.
Which at some point, Mr. Bethurum, do you go across the street?
Yes.
And what happens when you go across the street?
As soon as I heard Clay's been stabbed, I turned, walked across the street where I found him laying there, and then I got down, tried to assess what was going on, tried to locate where he was stabbed, and see if I could help out in any way. After about, I would say, 30 seconds of doing so, one of the bouncers from the bar that was actually trying to help Clay out as well, he pushed me in the chest, and he's like, "Bro, you've been stabbed too." And I kind of just didn't pay attention to it, and then he kind of forcefully picked me up. He was like, "No, you're bleeding a lot."
Did you even realize that you were bleeding at that time?
No.
And what did he do?
He handed me a clean rag from inside the bar, and I put it over my eye, and he kind of escorted me away from where Clay was laying and to this little wall in front of the bar and set me down there.
When did you realize that your elbow was injured?
Not until the paramedics were about to put me in an ambulance.
Now I'm going to ask that this witness be handed 5 photographs which have been shown to defense counsel, and they have been pre-marked A through E. Mr. Bethurum, if you could look at those photographs and let me know if you recognize those.
Yes.
And are those photographs that were taken of you and your injuries on that December 21st of 2019?
Yes.
All right, this time I would ask that those photographs be introduced as the next numbered exhibit, which I believe might be 60. Yes. Just for the record, is it 60?
It is.
Okay, 60 A through E. And I have available position to the jury. Mr. Bethurum, this is Exhibit 60A. Could you describe what is shown here?
That's me laying in a hospital bed.
And can you just describe for the record your left eye?
Yes, that's some sort of protective cover that the people at the hospital had put over it. There's someone there trying to address the wounds, maybe clean some blood up. Is there anything else?
This is 60B. Can you describe what is shown here?
Yes, that's an image of my of the stab wound to my arm, wrapped.
And this is 60C. Can you describe what is shown here?
Yes, that's an image of the stab wound to my left arm uncovered.
And 60D, can you describe what is shown here?
Yes, that's an uncovered image of the stab wound to my left eye.
And that's the exterior injury to your eye.
Correct.
And 60E.
That's someone assessing the same injury in the previous image.
And that's the stab wound to your left eye. Is that correct?
Correct.
If I can have just one moment. Thank you, Mr. Bethurum. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Hi, Mr. Bethurum. At you testified at the preliminary hearing in January of 2020. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
And I believe then you said that you were 6'3". Is 6'2" more accurate?
6'2" is accurate. Oftentimes with shoes on, it's 6'3".
Okay. And with that, how much taller than Paul Trapani were you?
Maybe 3 inches.
Okay. Would you have been as much as 4 inches taller than Clayton Bethard?
Probably about 3.
About 3 inches. Okay. You think he'd be about 5'11"? Is that?
That's about right.
Okay. And you had a relationship with Paul Trapani since kindergarten,
Yes.
and y'all were very close.
Yes.
And that night, you consumed a total of 8 drinks.
No, I believe it was less than that because some of them were not completely consumed.
Okay. Well, did you report to Nurse Brianna Mitchell at Vanderbilt that you had consumed 8 drinks?
I do not recall that conversation. Possibly so.
Okay. If I may pass you a copy of this, you can refresh.
Sure.
And it's actually the 4th page of the documents that I gave you, which is what I received, but I think it says page 11 down on the corner, highlighted.
Yes, that's what it says.
Okay, and would you agree that's accurate?
It's not a very detailed account.
So are you saying you had less than 8 drinks?
I can tell you exactly what I had to drink if you would like.
Sure.
I had 4 beers at the McCullough's. I had half of 1 beer at the Kung Fu bar, and I had roughly 2 drinks at the Dogwood bar.
Okay, thank you. Now I want to show you an overhead picture,
Okay.
and it may be that I need to pass this to the, you see it. All right. You see yourself coming out of the restroom area?
Yes.
And I'm going to put a little AB on your stomach area just to note that that's you. And you see those 2 in the sort of standing in front of the booth to your right in the picture, 2 Hispanic men?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you recognize either of those men as the one you hit?
The one with the puffy jacket kind of resembles the guy, but I can't be completely sure.
Okay, all right. And you would be considerably taller than that man, correct?
One might say a little bit taller.
All right. We'll offer that as our next exhibit.
Moving number 61.
And this is stills from that video basically we're just looking at. Now, in the first one, I just want to mark it. Sometimes easier to use the still photographs. And you are, if I remember correctly, sort of right underneath the live music venue sign. Can you see it?
I'm right at the top of the image in between the 2 glares of the light, yes.
Okay, and that's Ms. Falver behind you, or, well, I guess somewhat to the left of you?
I would assume so.
Okay, I'm gonna write a little AB up here to denote you. Let me know if I'm doing it wrong. And at some point, I believe you used the word beeline, you make a beeline across the street.
I walked directly across the street.
All right. And if you can't pick yourself out, I understand certainly.
Okay.
This is you in that, when you're doing the beeline.
That's me walking. Yes, sir.
Okay. Writing another AB to denote you. Let's see where that. And a few frames later. See yourself right here?
I'm not really sure in this image.
Okay.
The colors are a little different and off.
Oh, that's a little better, yeah. Okay. I mean, if you can't tell, I certainly understand.
I can't tell for sure.
Okay. Can you recognize this as Miss Falver?
No.
Okay. Now this is probably even more difficult, I'm guessing, for you.
Yes, sir.
248-43, is this Clayton Bethard in the white?
Like the previous image, I can't be for sure. I'd have to maybe see it up close or.
All right. Well, that's fine. We'll just set it aside. And here's for a different camera angle, also from 248-43. Now, can you identify Clayton Bethard?
That does look to be Clay.
Okay, I'll put a little CD for Mr. Bethard. And it's pretty dark, but can you see yourself there?
I can't distinguish myself for certain. It seems like that would be me
Okay, all right.
based on the.
We'll just leave
Based on
that.
where
We'll
everyone
offer
is.
this as our little collective exhibit of 3 photos. And on the Sunday, December 29, 2019, you were interviewed out at Battleground Academy with Detective Beavis and Detective Joyce. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I think at that time, you used the line, I made a beeline towards this person you thought had harmed or wronged Ms. Falver.
I may have said that.
Okay. And I'm going to show you a video of that. It's defendant ID number 9. Recognize yourself in that photo or video?
Yes.
And you go straight, and then you stop and point. Okay, recognize all that?
Yes, I would. I don't know if I was pointing or my left arm in that image was down to the side like this. It wasn't like I was sitting there pointing. I think it was more of a what's going on type gesture.
Okay. All right. We'll offer that as our next numbered exhibit. Defendant EFT ID 9. And after, of course, that video ends at 2:48:43, and at that point, you veer off to the right. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
All right, one more photo.
Give us a minute, Mr. Quinn.
I'm sorry?
Give us a second, we've got to.
Oh, yeah, I apologize. See yourself there, getting ready to throw a punch?
The image went out. There it is. I'm not sure if I can distinguish it, if that's me or not. Maybe in the video footage I could, but I'm not sure from the picture if I could say for sure that's me.
Okay, all right. Now, you get hit from the back, correct?
It came from my left side. Whether it was front or back, I'm not certain because I didn't even see it happen.
Okay. Now, I mean, since then, have you seen a video where a couple people crash into your back?
Yes.
Okay. And when you go down, you think, holy crap, we've just lost this fight?
I was like, I'm hurt bad. I got hit bad. I was like, I'm out of this. Like, there's no way I can contribute to trying to diffuse this anymore. So that's why I stayed on the ground.
Well, I mean, when you were talking to Detective Beavis on December 29th, that's what you said, I believe, and I can play you that audio.
Sure, I'll listen to that.
Okay.
No, I already have.
Oh, you have listened to it. So
Yes,
you
sir.
did say, holy crap, we've just lost this fight.
Yes.
Or you think that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's going through my head when I'm on the ground.
All right. And part of the reason you think that is you're really surprised that you're losing this fight.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I just got hit really hard. I was like, wow, if this person's hitting this hard to take my vision out in one punch, that's a formidable opponent.
You expected to win that fight, didn't you?
There was no win or lose. That was a mission in my head. It was defending my friends. Defending them would have, I wouldn't call that a win. I would just call that a success.
Well, at that preliminary hearing in January 2020, I believe you said you went to the defense of Thoby Favre. Is that correct?
Yes, and she was involved in the whole group of events.
When you hit whoever you hit, Ms. Favre wasn't anywhere close by, was she?
That's because the group of people had moved past where I saw her go to the ground.
You walked right past Thoby Favre on your way towards hitting somebody. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you did not go to help out Thoby Favre, correct?
That's correct.
And Patrick Wells went to her aid. Is that correct?
I'm not sure of that.
And at the time you hit whoever you hit, Ms. Favre was a good 20 feet away.
I would say 10, maybe 7 or 8.
Are you saying she was in the same lane of Division Street that you were?
No, we were on the far lane. She was probably in the close lane at that time.
Okay, but at that time she was under no threat from whoever you hit, correct?
No, but my friends who were still involved in this moving mass of people were still in threat.
Well, your friends were actually advancing on Mr. Mosley and his friend at that time. Is that correct?
That's not how I saw the situation.
And at the time, you weren't entirely sure it was Thoby Favre that went to the asphalt, correct?
I was fairly certain that it was, but I was not positive.
Okay. and you weren't even certain that the person you were going to hit had pushed or shoved Ms. Falver. Is that correct?
I knew that there were two groups of people, my friends and those individuals involved who were not my friends. I knew that the individuals involved that were not my friends had shoved a female on the ground and were actively involved in punching my friends as well. And so that's when I decided to become involved, because it was apparent that the situation would not defuse.
Well, back in that January 2020 hearing, an attorney named Justin Johnson asked you if you actually saw this person hit or shove Ms. Falver, correct? And he asked you, did you actually see it, or was it just in the rush of everything? And you said the rush of everything. Am I accurately restating what happened at that hearing?
I'm not certain about that exact line, but if it's on the record, then I believe you.
Well, let's play it just to make sure. We're going to play defendant ID 20. This is audio only.
There was a female that hit the ground, correct?
Yes, sir.
Was this after the fight had started?
Yes, sir.
Did you see anybody hit her or push her, or was it in the rush of everything?
It was in the rush of everything. She would.
There was a
The rush of everything, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll offer that as our next exhibit. And also, speaking of that December 29 interview with Detective Beavis, you stated that it was from the back, I got hit in the face. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, if I may have just a moment. Mr. Bethurum, would it be more accurate to say that when you went to punch whoever you punched, that you were more interested in punishing that person than defending another person?
That's false.
All right, thank you.
Anything to redirect?
Just briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Bethurum, the first time that you are struck, that is the strike to your left eye, is that correct?
Correct.
And that is the stab to your left eye.
Correct.
And you lose vision immediately.
Correct.
And you know that you were struck again because your left elbow is injured, but you don't actually remember that part happening.
No.
Thank you.
One more. Mr. Bethurum, after you say you were struck, you actually advanced another 2 or 3 steps towards the sidewalk. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything to redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. Watch your step as you step
Yes,
down.
ma'am.
please,
Thank
every
you.
time. All right. All right, gentlemen.
Your Honor, that is the state's proof in this case. We do not have any other witnesses to call.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this state has rested. There are some issues that the court needs to address. So you all can step down and